the groups like jellyfish or corals, right? And all the worms. So all the major worms, groups like segmented worms, brown worms, and other things, right? So for my past, it's mostly about the scary and funny groups that you deal with, right? After that, and remember, after I finish my part, right, on week 9, okay, we will have the midterm test. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Now, it depends at that time whether we can go to university or not. If not, then we'll have an online midterm test. Is it clear?
Okay.
If we can go to university, we'll do it on paper. But if not, then I will organize the online midterm test for you. So be prepared, right? The good thing with online midterm test that you will have open book exam. So you can use documents. But if you go to university, then we can decide later whether it's open book or closed book exam. Okay?
Yes. Okay.
Right. So after the midterm, then we'll deal with the groups that are more familiar to you, like the mollusks, the arthropods, like insects, right, and the echinoderms, right. These will be by Dr. Vic. Okay. Okay. So now, in order to study, right, we need to have a textbook to study, right? So there are 2 textbooks for this course, but I think most of you need to rely mostly on the first textbook, Invertebrate Geology. Okay, we cannot go to school, so you cannot go to the library, right? So I can share with you the PDF of the book later. Maybe during the break, I will upload the book into Drive, and I can share with you. Is it okay? So you can rely on the textbook to read. Of course, the textbook is a bit thick, so you don't have to read everything, right? So basically, you just focus on the group that I mentioned here in these slides, right? The names of the phylum. Okay, the names of the phylums are the focal parts of the contents that you study in this course. So we don't have to study everything in the textbook. You're okay? Is it clear? You need only need to focus on the groups that we mentioned during lessons. Okay, so anything that comes into the lecture notes, comes into the PowerPoint slides here, will be the contents of your study, right? And of course, there will be tests during your exams, right? So I will send you the PDF with this, right? Now for the practicals, right? It will be a bit easier for you because there will be some no. This is for the theory part, right? But just in case when you read this textbook and you still cannot understand so much, right? Maybe you can refer to this textbook, but just keep in mind that this textbook is quite different from the English textbook because in the classification is different and the way they treat and the information about this group in this textbook is also different. So you can refer to, so you can learn the words, the terms, right? When you can refer to this textbook when you learn the terms. But in order to study the characteristic of each invertebrate groups, right? I think you need to rely on the English textbook. Okay. Now, this Vietnamese textbook also helps you to supplement other parts is for the textbook for the practicals. Now, the first textbook I think is available. I have no PDF for that, so sorry. But for the practical, right, it depends. But when you can go to the university, we will give you a copy so you can photocopy certain parts for your practical lessons. So you only need to photocopy the parts that are relevant to your practical lessons. And Dr. Sun will inform you about the contents and the information about the practical letters when the time is right. Okay, so you don't need to be you don't need to worry so much about the practical textbook for now. Is it clear? So you're clear with this part? Yes or no?
So do you have the PDF for the book?
Which one? I already told you about this. Yes.
The true English version of the book?
The first book, the Invertebrate Geology book, I have the PDF. Okay? But the second one, I don't have the PDF, but only the hard copy. But I think you need to focus more on the first book, Invertebrate Geology. If you are interested more in this topic, then maybe when we have a chance, right, you can go to our department. You can borrow a copy of this book, The Biology of Invertebrates. Okay?
So if you have the PDF of the first book, then you can please send it to the class.
That's I told you just now, right? I'm going to share with you the PDF of the first book later, maybe during the break or maybe after the lessons. Okay? Is it clear now?
And can you give us the PowerPoint slide after?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Of course, as I mentioned here. Right? Lecture notes, PowerPoint slides, everything right be sent by Google Classroom. Okay? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything I will send very soon, right after the lessons. All right? Now, so Dr. Sun will send you information about practical lesson later, right? Textbook already told you, right? So the second book, right, is in the university library as well. I think it's also at our university library at T5 level 7, right? Yep. But then you cannot go to university, so I think the first book was already too much for you. So just to let you know, okay? Now you have to talk about this as well, right? So the practical component is quite important, and will be taken as the part that we call the continuous assessment grade, right? Will be based on your practical work and report during the practical. Okay, the other 20% will come from the midterm test, and the midterm test will be a form of multiple choice and short answer question. And I already told you earlier, right? We have it on week 9, right? Just copy the date. Okay, 2nd of November. Is that correct? Is it 2nd of November? I think so. Week 9.
Yeah.
Let me check again, just to make sure is this correct. I may be confused sometimes, right? So, sorry, this should be 9 of November. Is that right? 9 of November. It's not 7. Let me check again. Yeah, that's the problem of staying at home too much. I get confused about timeline. 9th November, I think so. Let me check again one more time. 20 seconds, yes. So you finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's right. So it will be 9th of November, all right? 9th November. Will be the midterm test. So I already told you, right? It depends on the situation. We may have online or on paper later on. And then we have the final exam, also in the same format, multiple choice with short answer question. Okay? And the same thing may happen, right? If you can do it at university, it's on paper. Otherwise, we will have online exam. So we know what to do, right? For this course. So you clear with this part?
Yes.
Okay. Good. So let's talk about invertebrates. What do you know about invertebrates?
They don't have bones.
They don't have bones. Yes. What else? What else?
I think invertebrate is an animal lacking a backbone.
Okay, very good. So those are the animals that lack backbones.
Yeah.
Excellent. Can you give some examples about invertebrates?
We have worms or anemone, corals, even jellyfish, snail,
Those are
any type of clam.
Clams, okay.
I don't know if arthropods are counted, but I
Octopus,
think
yes. Okay.
and insects.
Insects, of course. Fish, invertebrates.
No, they're not.
How about starfish?
Starfish are.
Are what? Invertebrates?
Excuse me?
So are starfish invertebrates?
Definitely.
Yep, good. Can you give more example? Maybe Thảo.
Me.
Yeah.
I think this is the insect.
Insects?
What? Yeah.
And?
Like the worm.
Worms?
Worm.
Okay, yes. Okay.
Arthropods.
Arthropods, I mentioned just now, right? Good.
Hydra.
Hydra, very good. What else?
Parasite.
Annelid.
Okay, segmented worms. That's what you mean? Annelid. Okay. What else? Ngọc Mai.
Em không biết gì.
Okay, so if you do not know yet, right? Because that's the point, right? You do not know so much yet. So that's why we need to study this course, right? Because you do not know, right? So actually, if you want to name invertebrates, right, there are many of them, right? So like you say just now, right, these are the, what do you call the animal without backbones, right? So now you have to define animals here. Animals here have to be multicellular organisms, okay? In English, invertebrates are actually referring to those, the animal referring to those multicellular organisms. But in this course, we also cover the unicellular organisms. So without backbones, of course. Like insects, crab, prawns, many, right? You can name a lot of them because there are millions of species, so million kinds of invertebrates. Right? So in this course, we also study the single cells or unicellular animal-like organisms that we call protozoa. Okay? So just bear in mind that this word in Vietnamese, right, language like protozoa, động vật nguyên sinh, or động vật đơn bào, these are not true animal, okay? The true animal has to be multicellular. But we also have to cover here, right? Because they have the connection with the true animals. So we also need to study protozoa. So in the first 3 lessons, we're trying to deal with that, right? So the position of this, right? If you look at this, right, where do we identify the group that we are going to study? You know, this the diagram showing the classification of life, right? 3 domains and 6 kingdoms, isn't it? Right. So we have the domain of bacteria, we have the domain archaea, and we have the domain eukaryota, right? Then we have 6 kingdoms. Now, so the invertebrate belong to which kingdom? Minchi?
I think it's Animalia.
Animalia. Now, if you look back to these slides, right? If we define the breed is the true animals, right? So we see that invertebrate are Animalia. But if we expand the definition of invertebrates, that also cover the protozoa. Okay? Then they belong to Animalia and
Protista.
Very good. So part of Protista and part of Animalia. Okay? So these are the things that you're going to study in this course. Okay, so part of the Protista and most of the Animalia, except for the invertebrates. So in this course, we do not study, except the vertebrates, sorry. So in this course, we do not study fish, birds, and mammals, of course. Okay? So you see the position, right? So these are what we call animals, so-called animals in the tree of life. Now, why do we need to study them? I think this diagram, right, can give you the clue for the answer. Now, of course, nowadays, right, there are even more than 1 million species, but I think the proportion of the chart here will not change so much. Okay, so look at this diagram. Could you give me the answers about why we need to study invertebrates?
Because most of our species are invertebrate.
Yes, that's one. Very good. So we can see here one reason is that we can see the majority of the diversity on Earth, right? The majority of species on Earth belong to invertebrates. You can see that about half belong to insects. Insects are invertebrates, right? Then we have the majority in the blue section here. Like we have starfish, right? We have worms, we have mollusks, right? We have crabs, snails, right? All these invertebrates. So except the invertebrates here. So you can see the invertebrate takes up about like 2/3 of the number of species on Earth, right? So they are the majority. So you cannot ignore this majority. That's one reason. Right? You can see, look at the diversity of life. You can see, right, the major branch of evolution belong to invertebrates. Okay, this one they draw more on vertebrates, but I see the more species actually on the section of the invertebrates. And at the moment, scientists discover about like nearly 2 million species on Earth. Okay, and about 1 million already belong to insects. That's to let you know. And we realize that actually we do not know much about life on Earth. We have known about like a very small portion of it, right? So the gray part here is like nearly 7 million species that we estimate, the scientists estimate that there are still at least 7 million species that are not known to science yet. Okay? So the unknown is much, much bigger than the known. right? So when we break down to groups, we realize that we know very little about insects, and scientists estimate that there are a lot more species of insects out there, and we still have not identified them, have not recorded them. So when we break down into this, right, we can see this is the different section of life, right? So you can see we do not know much about viruses, and that's why we have the problem with COVID-19, right? We do not know much about viruses yet. So it's like we know less than 1% about viruses, less than 1% about bacteria. It looks very scary, isn't it? So the yellow part here is the part that we do not know. Okay, so but you look at invertebrates, you can see, right, like the crabs and prawns, the mollusks like snails and clams, right, the worms, right, the spiders, and anything look like spiders, right, insects and other invertebrates. You can see that we know very little about them. Also, right. So, like for the insects example, they estimate that we only know about 20% of the insects on Earth. So there's still a lot of species out there to be discovered, right? And then you can see the opposite for the chordates or the vertebrates, like mammal and fish, right? Actually, we know a lot about them. The main reason is that usually the mammals, the birds, the fish, right, are the big size animal. So we can spot them easily when you go to nature, right? But most of the invertebrates are very small, and usually they are hidden somewhere. So we still have not discovered them yet. That's the reason why we need to spend more time. We need more people to study invertebrates because of the unknown. Okay, that's one reason. The first reason was the diversity of invertebrate is great, and it's the major group of living organisms on Earth. Okay, and we do not know much about them. That's the first reason. Okay, and the other reason is that's the first reason, right? The second reason is that we can really see. We can find invertebrates almost everywhere. I have to say so. Now, if you take your house as one ecosystem, your house, right? Can you find invertebrates in your house? And what are they?
They are literally everywhere.
Yes, but in your house. In your house, what do you have?
Insects like ant or moth, or
ants, okay,
arthropods like
spiders,
or even
mosquito.
Mosquitoes, very good. So mosquitoes are often in our house, right? So they are invertebrates. So in your house, you already can identify quite a number of species of invertebrates, right? And maybe cockroach. You know cockroach?
Yes.
So spiders, we have mosquitoes, we have flies, right? So at least 5 species already, right? Sometimes we may get some butterflies come flying in as well, right? Or termites. Yeah. So you can see, right? In your house, there was already there are more species than human species already, right? In the house. Maybe you count the number of invertebrate individuals in your house. It's like our number of the people in your house, right? Especially when we deal with ants or mosquitoes. True? Okay, so that's in your house. But when you go to nature, right, out into the natural habitats, you can find a lot of invertebrates. Like we mentioned just now, right? Maybe in the forest, we have insects like butterflies, right? Or dragonflies, or other kinds of mosquitoes, a lot of beetles and so, right? And you go to the sea, do you find any invertebrates in the sea? Can you find some example of invertebrates in the sea, in the ocean?
Starfish.
Starfish, very good.
Coral.
Corals, all right. What else?
Jelly.
Sea sponge.
Sea sponge, very good.
Crab.
Shrimp.
Stream.
Crab.
Crabs.
Octopus.
Octopus. Okay, so we have a lot, right? So we can see, right, even in the very deep sea, the deep ocean, right, up to like 10,000 meters deep, right? You can still can find invertebrates. So they are almost everywhere. Now, up in the air, do you find invertebrates? Any invertebrates that can fly in the air?
Butterflies.
Butterflies. Butterflies, right? So you can see, right, almost every part of the biosphere, right, of the living environment on Earth, right, we can find invertebrates. So they are literally everywhere, right? From the very cold part of the ocean, very deep part of the ocean, and to on land, right? And they're important also because we eat them. Is that right? We eat a lot of invertebrates, like we eat crabs, we eat prawns,
Jellyfish.
we eat jellyfish. Actually, we can eat many things, right? And the many things also belong to invertebrates. True? And we also can find medicines from invertebrates. So because these are essential things for us, right? Like food, of course, we need to study them so we can differentiate like which one we can eat and which one we cannot. Because there are some invertebrates, they are poisonous, they are toxic, we cannot eat them. So we need to study so we know which one we can avoid, which one we have to avoid, and which one we can take. Okay, so this is another reason. The next reason is about invertebrate is that many invertebrates are parasites, cause disease to human or plants or animals, right? Can you name some parasites that are invertebrates? What?
Thế con chỉ nhớ tên khoa học của con thấy thôi nhưng con không nhớ tên thường gọi của nó.
Okay, mite.
Mite.
Oh, sorry, mite is another group. Mite in Vietnamese is cháy. Oh, something I forgot. So sorry. I try to find out later. Okay. Cháy. Okay, I check later. But mites are actually giận. Cháy and giận are two different things. Okay. Cháy is actually a kind of insects. Mites is a kind of the group that is actually more similar to spiders. Okay. Any other parasites? Worms, right? Like we have brown worms. Right. So these are the ones that cause disease, right? So because they cause disease, we also need to study them. Right? So anything that is like related to our life, we need to deal with. Right? So invertebrates are good, and also there are some bad ones to human, and these are the ones that we need to study, right? And of course, this is the very big question. So along the way, when we study this course, invertebrates, when we come to different groups, right, then we can slowly find the answers for this big question, right? For which group, and you see there are roles in the natural world and also there are roles to our life, right? So slowly we learned about the importance of invertebrates in every lessons. Okay? Okay, so because invertebrates are important, so there's a separate branch of biology that we call invertebrate zoology, just to deal with invertebrates, right? And this branch of science aims to discover, to analyze and understand the diversity of life. Because you see here, right, the majority of living organisms on Earth belong to invertebrates. So in order to understand the evolution of life of animals, right, we need to study invertebrates. And also to study the ecological roles of invertebrates, the biologies of both useful and harmful species. Like just now we see that the useful one are the one which provide us food or medicine, right? Then we also have to study that parasitic, for example, and also to study the implication and the practical application, right, of these invertebrates in our life, right? So these are the main aims of the branch of invertebrate zoology. But of course, in this course, this is like very big things, right, to do research on. But for you, when you study, right, we only need to focus on certain things. Okay, so you can see here, as life is very diverse, right, we classify living things into different level that we call the hierarchy of biological classification, right? It starts from a species, right? Then we arrange based on the relationship of organisms, like species that are related to each other and group into genus, and genera that are related to each other and group into family, right? So and so on. But then there are millions of species of invertebrates, and this course is only like 15 weeks. So we don't have enough time to study every groups of invertebrates. And therefore, we need to be strategic. We need to focus only on the phylum and some classes. Okay, so hierarchical classification in translation is here. Like, for example, you study the phylum Arthropoda and the class Insecta. Class Insecta is actually referring to the insects. Okay, so in this course, we only need to focus on the phylum and the class of invertebrates, mostly phylum. Okay, is it clear? Is it clear?
Okay, it's clear.
Okay. Now, so in each lessons, right, we need to pay attention to some key points, right? They may not appear in the same order, but you need to take note of some of these key points. First thing, like, of course, in every lessons, we will have a group in focus, right? For each, then we need to focus on, and then the key characteristic of that group. For example, like maybe tomorrow we study insects, right? The class Insecta, so we need to study about the key characteristic of insects. Let's say so. Okay, and then you also need to look at the structure. The characteristic can break down into structure and function. Okay, so the structure of the body, the appearance or the morphology, right? In terms of, in the context of forms and function. For example, like wings for flying. So wings is the structure, the form, right? Flying is the function. Is it clear? Now, and then for some important group, we also need to look at how they reproduce, because it's also one of the key things in certain groups, like especially the groups that are useful and harmful to humans, right? We need to know how they reproduce. So whether either we can make use of them or we can try to prevent them from reproducing. So these are important to know. Some of the groups, reproduction. And of course, we need to pay attention to their diversity as well, right? Because as you can see here, invertebrates are very diverse. So each group, we need to look at their diversity. And sometimes during the lessons, right, we also need to look at some of their significance, right, their importance to humans' life. So these are the key points in each lessons that you need to take notes and you need to focus on when you review your lessons. Is it clear? Is it clear?
It is.
Okay, good. So before we go for the break, right, I think we need to focus on this also. How we study this course effectively. Because it looks like a challenge for everyone now. We need to, every lessons we have to deal with very different groups of animals, right? And many of them are not familiar to you. So how to do it effectively is very important, right? So when you study, right, any new structure in the animals, right, you try to find the link, the connection, right, between forms and function. Okay? So you don't need to remember everything, but you need to understand the relationship between form and function. Okay? Try to find the similarities and differences between major group of invertebrates. Okay? And pay attention to keywords. Usually I will highlight the keywords, okay? And then, of course, in order to study this one effectively, you need to take notes. Okay, you can just not rely on the PowerPoint slides or the textbook, but you need to take a lot of notes along the way, okay? Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a break. 10 minutes break. Tự nhiên mình còn quăng